I'm ready. It says it's live.
Says it's live. Let's see if we're live. Maybe we're live.
John threatened to wave at us. Or
we're live. Awesome. All right. Let me hit the tweets out. So I don't forget to do that because I have a bad habit of remembering to do that 20 minutes into the show. So, oh, shit. On the other hand, it hasn't been a big problem so far. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Armchair Dragoons Digital Convention early 2021 rep party and happy hour. Hope everybody's got a libation. So
my standard issue cider.
I can't really drink cider. I like it, but it sours my stomach if I drink like a whole bottle of it.
Yeah. I get that it's not for everybody. There's just too many IPAs running loose in the world these days. And a friend of mine actually does a beer podcast. He's a sports talk radio guy here locally. And so he's, for a smaller market, has garnered some national attention for their show over the years. Really good dude. Love him to death. He lives in my neighborhood is the main reason I know him. Our kids go to the same school. But he also does a beer podcast around here with a lot of the local microbrews and stuff. And he is completely burned out on IPAs as well because everybody's got like 5 IPAs. And we were joking one day at the pool. This was 2 summers ago because nobody was at the pool this year. That IPAs are just pumpkin spice lattes for guys. So
no, that's pretty much accurate. If you are sick of IPAs, though, for those who don't know, I would encourage you to try a British-based IPA, and you'll find that it's fairly different in character than, at least usually, than your typical American hop party that we call an IPA over here.
Yeah. I'm down for a good lager or a good ale. I'm perfectly fine with a good British ale. There's actually a really good brewery up in Asheville, North Carolina here that does a Gaelic ale that's really good. I can't do IPAs. And I've just found that, if I stick with a cider, it's something smooth and calm and I'm good with it. And I've only found one cider out there that's absolute crap. I found a couple that are kind of hit and miss, but I've only found one really bad one. So, yeah.
Which we won't name. So, it looks like as we've discussed before the stream, because I've got fucking COVID. I've had weird fatigue issues where I'll like completely flatline in the middle of the day and have to sleep it off. But it seems like the digital convention this time around has been booming.
It has exceeded all expectations that I had for attendance. It's been fantastic. The end result was north of 100 people total. That includes GMs and a couple of folks that we gave badges to just for them to sort of see what we're doing and how we're doing it. I mentioned it on the happy hour with Mo. There was one of the Gamma guys I was hoping would stop by. I didn't see him pop into the Discord. But overall, I've been thrilled with the fact that folks have been playing and having a good time and enjoying it. So
remarkable, especially considering that, as we also discussed, there is literally another tabletop wargaming digital convention occurring at this very minute, this same weekend, in which there's fortunately not really any overlap for. But I thought about this. My initial event pitch was going to be Great Campaigns of the American Civil War. And then I found out that there's an entire Great Campaigns of the American Civil War convention that's happening online this weekend. So I was like, well, if you want to do that, go over there. And otherwise stay over here. So I've paid more attention to what's been going on this side, but I can watch all the stuff after the fact on YouTube. So I'd like to welcome everybody who is in the chat. John Longshore is, of course, here. H. Tuna. Richard Kerr is here. Peter Bergs, Daniel, thanks for stopping by the command tent. And Paul, thanks. And Robert Reese, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, hi, guys.
We're just here to shoot the shit and for however long we decide to shoot the shit for at the end of the convention.
There's going to be a certain point at which the aroma of ribs from my oven down in the house is going to make its way all the way out here. My wife's had them slow roasting since about 2:00 this afternoon. So once we get close to the Saints kicking off and the ribs getting done, I may be bowing out at that point.
That reminds me, there is a Browns game. The Browns are in the playoffs. There's a pretty good chance that they're going to get steamrolled by Chiefs, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. In fact, they're already losing as expected.
Yeah, it's within 2 scores. It's respectable. Yeah. It's you know, I was joking the last time the Browns were in the playoffs, my son wasn't born. He's off to college this fall.
Yeah. That's sad, actually.
So,
but
yeah. But yeah, so some of the folks, just again, knowing who some of the names are popping in there. H. Tuna, one of the Dragoons regulars, Command Tent, one of the Dragoons regulars. So appreciate those guys popping over here. And it's not like, the Dragoons and Ardwulf's Lair don't team up for things on a reasonably regular basis. So, but it's great to have you guys over here. And thank you for, being a GM for us for the OCS game. I watched part of it for a little while last night. Not because I couldn't sleep, but because I was just keeping an eye on stuff.
Well, we did run for 4 hours pretty much of solid play. And I thought it was maybe not like a perfect 4 hours and now the game, but at least it gave people the whirlwind tour of how the mechanics work and the types of things that you have to keep in mind while playing. And as far as I could tell, having reviewed it again today, I only made one significant rules screw up. And that was not that big of a rule screw up and wouldn't have affected a real game anyway.
That's a pretty solid percentage if that's what you can pull off there.
Yeah. And that thing's we got through about half a turn, right? Which is, about what I expected. So 1 player turn. We got through the German turn. And there's already almost 600 views on the video, which is really high. So,
I mean, it hasn't even been, it's not been 24 hours. It's been 18 hours at this point?
Yeah. And there's like 570 views on the video. So that's pretty outstanding.
I'm wondering, did the multi-man guys tweet it out or something?
They might have retweeted me because I tweeted it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I am looking for somewhere. How the heck do I post something in the comments myself on this thread? What the hell?
There should be let me see this. Hold on.
I'm not cool enough to post this stuff because you're the host of the show. I wanted to share out. I will send it to you and you can share it. That's fine.
You can put it in the private chat.
Yep. So that is the link for the live stream page for this weekend's convention. And what I did is everywhere that somebody was live streaming or posted videos after the fact to YouTube, I collected all of those onto one page for our on our site. So if you want to go back and watch any of the live streams, including Gary's OCS live stream or any of the others, the talk show with Mo the other night, the different games we had, they're all consolidated in one place there. The only thing missing at this point that I'm aware of, I need to upload the recording of Dana Lombardi's talk today at 1:00, the one about World War I, which was a really cool talk because he dug into a lot of the history of it. Sort of, here are some of the myths around World War I, and here's the actual documentary evidence to the contrary. And so that was kind of that was a fun talk to see.
Yeah, I want to watch that as well. There's at least 4 seminars that I want to watch. So
yeah, that one will be up. I'm hoping to get to it later tonight, but let's face it, I got ribs and a Saints game waiting for me, so it might be tomorrow.
It's cider, so
yes, and the cider. The cider's not going to impact me putting the video up there. The game might impact me putting the video up there. But yeah, so it was. I have to say, we did this last summer. We didn't have a clue what we were doing, and to say we knew what we were doing this time is probably still giving us too much credit. But we at least had the benefit of some hindsight of, hey, don't do that again. And I think we avoided any egregious errors from last time. But one of the things that was kind of cool this time around, when we did this last summer, it was a lot of asking people, hey, would you be interested in helping do this? And most folks thought it was a pretty cool idea, but I think there was some trepidation of, hey, wait a minute, you're going to do what? This time around, now that we've got one under our belt, HMGS did the Cyber Wars one last summer. San Diego HISCon went, and folks have gotten a little more comfortable with the idea of this sort of convention thing. We had a bunch of people throwing their hat in the ring proactively and saying, "Hey, want to be involved?" And
one or two of them might have done so because I told them to.
But, well, and that's cool. Like I don't mind that. But we had a handful of folks just sort of pop up out of the blue and say, "Hey, I want to do this." we had a couple people that bit off more than they could chew, and they realized they weren't going to be able to make the Vassal stuff go the way they wanted to, and had to duck out after we had originally put them on the schedule. So
yeah,
and that's fine. Like, at least they did it ahead of time. We didn't leave players hanging.
Mm-hmm. So I think what I want to pitch to you is next time, whenever next time happens, is a rolling monster game session that runs 24 hours throughout the entire length of the convention. You start at 5 p.m. or 8 p.m. or whatever on Friday, and you'd have people rolling in and out of it every 8 hours or so to, be the moderator or facilitator, and whatever that is, it's OCS or OCS makes. I mean, I kind of said this on the live stream, and I've been on this bandwagon before. OCS makes for crappy content because it moves too. It just does, because it moves too slow, right? You could get good OCS content, but if you do, then you're doing either some kind of instructional thing, or you're doing a heavily edited, structured thing where you're only showing the highlights. So I'm trying to think of a game that would actually work for, a game that would be entertaining to watch. And just so you could have, like, here's this 30-hour live stream of whatever it happens to be. Yeah, I don't know what that game system is yet, but once I find it, I'm gonna tell you about it. All
right, we got folks in the Discord chat asking for the link to the happy hour going on right now, so I am throwing that in there real quick. The camera on my standalone laptop is better than the camera on my one with the external monitor. So I can't run dual monitors while looking good on. I mean, I don't look good on camera anyway, but while having a good signal here. So I'm trying to get folks into the right place. So, all right. There we go. We've got folks.
We both put it in.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned next time we do this.
Yeah. Well, I figured we were going to get to that question at some point.
Yeah, we might as well, sort of get it out up front here where we're, not more than 10 minutes in, 12 minutes in, whatever. So for folks that don't know, this summer, Origins has moved off of their June time slot. They are moving to October in the hopes that the plague subsides enough that they can have a real in-person convention. And so Origins plans for October, good, bad, or otherwise, they're planning on an attendance cap, mandatory masks, whatever they're going to do to have an in-person convention. And we're still sort of assessing whether or not
mandatory delousing.
Yeah, well, yeah. As long as there's not like a required community shower stall you have to go through to get in and out of the hall, we can work with it. But the Dragoons, we're still kind of assessing internally whether or not there's enough of us that would be able to actually do something to make it worthwhile for trying to attend an October convention just to keep the wargaming program going. We're going to look at it, but at this point, we don't know one way or the other. What we do know, though, is Origins has moved off of that June weekend, and I believe it was 18, 19, 20, right around there. I think 18, 19, 20 is the Friday, Saturday, Sunday in June.
Something like that.
Origins was originally scheduled. We're going to take that weekend. And so our next virtual convention is going to be this summer on the weekend that was going to be Origins. Since all y'all were planning on playing games with us anyway that weekend, we're just going to do it digitally instead of all in person in Ohio.
See, I expected like 10 minutes of hemming and hawing about how you hadn't picked it out yet, and it's all up in the air and blah, 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 blah. And here you've got it all set, dates nailed down and everything. So we
figured this part. As soon as Origins looked like they might be moving off of that weekend, that one just made the most sense to try and grab anyway, because a lot of folks, like, you've been an Origins regular for a decade now.
Two decades.
Yeah.
This year, 2020 would have been the 26th Origins for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been about the 15th for me. But folks are planning their summers in some cases around Origins, Gen Con, Dragon Con, WBC, whatever it may be. Yeah. And so we were figuring folks probably had that weekend boxed off anyway for some gaming. We're just going to do it all through the digits instead of in person.
Awesome. And this gives people plenty of heads up time to figure out how to clear their schedule out or call in sick for that weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. Tuna's asking if it's usually Father's Day. For whatever reason, Origins tends to land right on Father's Day weekend. And I think that's just a function of when two things. One, when the convention center in Columbus is available and signed for that far in advance. But I think also part of what Gamma looks for, and they probably won't admit this out loud, but it's a legit consideration that I know about, is they want to have an appropriate amount of separation between them and Gen Con so that they're not too close together, they're not too far apart. And where Gen Con usually happens towards the end of July, this gives them 6 to 7 weeks of separation between them. And that tends to be the window that they shoot for. So for a while there, it was 4th of July weekend. Back in the aughts, for a little bit, it was 4th of July weekend, and that was kind of nutty.
So I always associate the weekend of Origins as for non-Origins events with the Pride weekend here in Columbus, of course.
Yeah.
There's a hilarious story this would have been about 1995. No, this would have been about 1998, 1999 or so, where we came down from Cleveland. We lived in Cleveland at the time, and we would pack everybody up, get a hotel room wherever we could get it, and come down to Origins for a couple of days. So we would, on Saturday morning, we went and played in a game like at 8 a.m. or something like that. That time that I don't like to get up at anymore. So there was an 8 a.m. seminar at the GCACW event, and it's like, yeah, no, I went to bed. I literally went to bed at 8 a.m. So we come down, play an event. It's like 11 a.m., 12 a.m., noon, something like that. We're like, hey, let's go across the street to Barley's and get us some lunch. Okay, cool. So we walk out to me like 3 other strapping, straight-looking young men. Walk out of the convention center, and we're like, oh, look, a parade. I wonder what's going on. I didn't know that there was a parade this weekend. Did you know there was a parade this weekend? No, I didn't know there was a parade this weekend. Why do those firefighters not have any shirts on? So it was a hilarious, clean-cut young white boys moment in Columbus. We had no idea what was happening.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there was a window there when I first started going to Origins. 05 was my first Origins. There was a window there for the first 5 or 6 years that I was at Origins where Pride weekend and Origins were not on the same weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not every year.
No, it did overlap with ComFest a couple of times, which just made parking hellacious.
Yes, which has got its own let's call it not conventional vibe going on.
Correct. But it tended to stay on the other side of the interstate.
Yeah, you wouldn't see it if you just didn't leave the convention center or the immediate environment.
Aside from parking issues, ComFest and Origins tended to stay sufficiently far apart. So that was fine. But the last couple of years, Pride and Origins have overlapped. We had one of the Dragoons back in years past was his first time at Origins. First time at any real convention. So, of course, dude's shell-shocked, right, by 18,000 fellow nerds in one building, just threw him for a complete loop. And we gave him directions to get over to North Market. We said, oh, by the way, the parade is going on. He didn't have, okay, Pride Parade, big deal. It's a traffic obstruction. That's all we cared about. And so we sent him over the Sky Bridge. And, when you come back down out of the Sky Bridge, turn here, and then make this next turn, and you're at North Market. He turned the wrong way coming down the stairway out of the Sky Bridge. And he's like, guys, I'm at High and Broad Street and the state capitol's right here. And y'all didn't mention that at all. And we're like, dude, you're like 7 blocks in the wrong direction. Turn around and come back.
Yeah, it's about a 15-minute walk.
Yeah. And he did all 15 minutes of it sort of parallel in the parade, not realizing he was going the wrong direction.
I mean, there were times where I would walk to Origins from work, actually, because I work downtown. So it's like a 15, 20-minute walk from where I worked. So Mo, thanks for stopping by. Has mentioned that he's not very confident for the gaming convention scene this year. And I kind of agree with him. I think we got a real shot to do conventions that are late year conventions like October, November, December.
Yeah.
Anything earlier than that, September. I'm hoping for September because that'd be Buckeye Game Fest if it happens for us here. And I certainly hope that it does. I'm not super duper confident. So
I will say, so I mentioned this the other night on the happy hour with Mo. Back in November, over Veterans Day weekend here in North Carolina, Mace held their convention in person.
Yeah, I heard.
So Jeff basically went to so it's out in Charlotte. They used to be over in Greensboro High Point Triad area, and they've moved to Charlotte because they need a bigger location. And Jeff basically went to the Mecklenburg County health folks and said, I want to try to do this convention. What are the rules? Tell me what I have to do. And they gave him a list of stuff he had to do, and he stuck to it Exactly. So he spread things out as much as he could throughout the hotel, through the hotel that he uses. Put very strict limits on how many people were in each of the rooms. They did not have the concession stand this year. The vendors, instead of one vendor room with a lot of people cycling through, he spread the vendors out throughout the thing. So the folks that were in the gaming room, he could reasonably add 2 to 3 people to go look at the vendor tables while they were at it. Had a couple of bouncers at the door to keep the numbers down. No walk-up registration at all. You either pre-registered for the convention or you didn't show up. And they held it. They had 120, 140 people, whatever it was. I don't remember the exact number. Generally, Mace pulls in close to 1,000, I think. I mean, it's a pretty good size con.
That's not a Detroit wargaming event, though.
No. Oh, no. Wargaming is a definite minority here. This is primarily RPG and some tabletop stuff. CCGs were big for a while, but have started to wane. But they pulled off a legit game convention in person back in November, and they have Mace West coming up here in 2 months or so.
Where's that?
It's Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, super west then.
Yeah, well, it's west of where Mace is normally held.
Western North Carolina.
Yes. Keep in mind, though, I mean, Just Us Productions is a North Carolina-based group. This is where they are, and so the shows they do are based around here. We are hoping to collaborate with them at some point in the future when we can get actual real people in the door again, where we can have a Dragoons presence at Mace. We've talked about it for a couple of years and just haven't been able to make it work yet. But I'm hopeful that we can do it coming up in the next year or two, that we'll be able to go. Sean, you would love to go to one.
Yes, he would. Sean, where are you located? Maybe we can even recommend a convention for you to go to, assuming that this thing clears up at some point in the future. I would like to see this digital event format continue even after the pandemic is gone, right? I mean, it'd be awesome to be able to do one of these a month, right? Even if, say, Harold and the San Diego folks manage to get a physical convention going again, there's nothing stopping them from doing a digital convention on top of that.
Yeah. See, Gary would like for one a month because all he has to do is show up and play a game and then host a talk show, and he's good.
Well, that's close too. Yeah, I'm aware of my COVID-based limitations at this time. So,
at this point, I would see the Dragoons continuing with at least one of these a year for the foreseeable future.
That's just fantastic.
That said, we're taking volunteers who want to help organize some of these things because it's about to get too big for 1.5 people to sort of wrangle this to the ground.
I find that believable.
The DMs are open, guys. If you're
well within range of Origins, which is a bit quite large. I mean, I consider it a small and cozy convention because that's me, but it's a fairly big convention. It draws about 25 or 30,000 people. That is probably the biggest chunk is probably board games, and then there's a lot of RPG stuff. There's a fair amount of miniature stuff, and there's some war game stuff as well, plus kind of media tracks and stuff, the kind of other kind of things that you would expect. But here in Columbus, Ohio, we also have the Buckeye Game Fest, which is typically in September. This year, who knows? But that has a week-long war room where we can starting on Monday, we can set a big war game up and play it clear through to Sunday if we want. So that's worthwhile for you. And there's Mike Curtis. I don't know if you know him. He's in Tennessee as well. Although I think he's around Nashville, I think. He comes up to Winterfest in Sandusky, Ohio, which is right on Lake Erie, and it's probably a 6 or 7 hour drive for him. But we have a week long of wargaming there as well. That's a pretty focused event. And again, we don't know what's going to happen. The next one of those will be in presumably February 2022. Yeah. This year's is canceled.
Beat Cafe just chimed in with NashCon over in Nashville. Definitely. Knoxville's not that far from Asheville that you couldn't get to Mace West if you were interested, but that's not a wargaming convention. It's much more RPG tabletop kind of stuff. Also from Nashville, you're not too far from Chattanooga where LibertyCon is normally held. And that's where Steve Jackson tends to make an appearance at LibertyCon in Chattanooga every year. The real
Steve Jackson, not Steve Jackson, right?
Yes. The U.S. Steve Jackson, not the U.K. Steve Jackson.
Right.
But yeah, he shows up like he plays in the Munchkin tournament with everybody else. And But he tends to be a regular for LibertyCon for whatever reason.
Great at conventions, actually. He just plays he plays in his own games a lot. But I mean, I've played Car Wars with Steve Jackson because that's just how Steve rolls. So it's all kind of awesome.
Yeah, he's happy to sit down and sling dice with anybody. Mo, you're right. I think definitely for the near future. But as Gary's mentioned, one of the cool things about this is once we can go to real conventions again, folks are going to want to go to real conventions again. That's really cool.
Me too.
But I think the ability to drop in to a convention like this, sleep in your own bed, eat your own food, and still on occasion, be able to run to the grocery store if you have to, kind of a thing. I don't see a reason these are going to completely go away. We may just end up with, sort of a split between in-person versus digital. But yeah, again, I don't see a reason why we wouldn't keep at least one of these a year on the calendar. We just got to figure out the timing that makes the most sense for us.
Winter, actually, I mean, COVID aside, winter actually makes a lot of sense because there's not, I don't know. There's kind of more events, but there's Compass Expo, which is typically in November. There's MMP's Winter Offensive, which is typically in January. There's Winterfest,
this weekend,
very small event, in February. So it's not, but you could easily squeeze something into like the March or October time frame where there's typically not a lot of convention activity. So there's space to do these kind of things. Carl, you mentioned if you're in California, I know that there's the San Diego Historical Games Convention. That's Harold Buchanan's convention. That is a wargaming focused, or at least historical games focused.
Carl's not those. Carl's one of the guys that runs the Wargame Boot Camp.
Okay, so and I know
he's at the there's a couple of them up and down the California coast besides the San Diego one. There's one in LA and one in San Francisco that tend to hit like Memorial Day and Labor Day weekends. I think is when they typically book into the summer, and I think that's what he shoots. He's a part of those on a regular.
There's the GMT events that are in California, the weekend at the warehouses.
Yeah,
there's a large general gaming event, not about large, but a decent sized general gaming event in the Bay Area somewhere. I forget what it's called. And in fact, there may have been multiple such events in the history.
Yeah. So there was Kubla Khan for a while.
I've heard of that.
And because again, I happen to be friends with Anthony Gallela, and he was one of the founders of that one. If it's the same one I'm recalling, there's another one with a very similar name. And the one, so that there's two of them with very similar names. One's in San Francisco, one's in Denver, and they both have names very close to Kubla Khan. And so I don't remember which one is actually called Kubla Khan and which one's close. But there's one in San Francisco, one in Denver. Carl's mentioned Pacificon is one of the two that I was trying to think of. GMT's warehouse, Tuna, is in Hanford, California. And if you go looking for it on a map, you need a microscope. It is also absolutely nowhere near anything cool in California other than the GMT warehouse. People that have never been to California have a real bad conception of what California is like. They think it's, all San Francisco gay pride parades and Baywatch. And man, let me tell you, that strip from Bakersfield to Sacramento up that I-5 corridor, that sucks. Ask John Compton.
Central Valley, yeah. And that's where Hanford is. It's Central Valley, so it's just kind of a giant Central Valley. I guess I've really not spent that much time. I mean, I've driven through it, but that's really
it is all dried up agriculture at this point. I mean, they're dealing with like a 10-year drought at this point. It was all agriculture. It was like 80% of the world's almond crop was grown out there.
Yeah, that's before it all was on fire earlier in 2020.
Well, no, it was all on fire up in the mountains overlooking the valleys. The valleys are just all dried out because all the water's dried up right now. So
closest big city is Fresno.
Oh, Fresno's huge.
I've never been to Fresno, so I have no idea.
Fresno is a big ass city. It is 1.5 million people in the middle of flipping nowhere. Because the train broke down there once, and they decided, that'd be a good place for a train station. Everybody put your crops on board.
Well, this is nice.
Yeah, there is it's not like there's a major landmark near Fresno. It's not like at a major river crossing or something. It's just the middle of flipping nowhere because they needed a place to load the trains with all the crops.
It's
a dump. It's the middle of nowhere. It is a dump.
Huh. Yeah, I've never really been through. I mean, I've driven through Central Valley and that's it. And I've been to San Francisco and I've been to Death Valley, which is not the same valley. So
No. But if you live in Fresno, it kind of feels like it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Y'all didn't know you were getting a geography lesson at happy hour there.
Hefwil, there is, you're probably aware already that there's, I think it's Il Biota Con that's in Spain. I don't know when that happens, but it's supposed to be. Stuka Joe's done video from there. It looks like a cool event, actually. And I know that there's, since you're still in the EU, I know that there's a couple of fairly nice looking wargaming focused events in Italy as well. Don't know, what the prospectus is right now because of COVID, but I'm guessing we'll get back to these things at some point.
There was one in San Marino that was going for several years in a row for a while there, that I thought was kind of cool. Like just to be able to go get a different stamp on your passport, to go to San Marino. So there was this was sort of interesting that back in the mid-aughts, back when I still lived in Columbus, I was in the Columbus Army National Guard, the Ohio Army National Guard, in a unit in Columbus when I was in grad school up there. And somewhere around mid to late 07, these guys got notice that they were going to be deploying to Iraq the next year or so. One of the things folks may not know about this actually happened in 06 and 07, I think it was, when there was a huge American presence in Baghdad. A bunch of the dudes got together at one of the chow halls one weekend, and they actually held Ziggurat Con. They held a game convention in a war zone. No kidding.
That's hardcore.
They worked out their schedules and they just did a whole bunch of role playing and card game stuff for a weekend, took over the mess hall and they held Ziggurat Con in the war zone in Iraq. And I think they did it 2 years in a row. I think they did 06 and 07. And so originally I was on the list for deploying to go with the unit out there. And I ended up coming off the list when I got the job down here in North Carolina and was working down here instead because I'd left town. So I wasn't in the unit anymore. But I'd been joking with my boss that this was back when Bayonet Games was still going. I said, if we end up over there and they do a Zig 3, I really want to figure out a way that we can get me up to Baghdad to go do that because I want to be the first vendor at a game convention in a war zone. And looking back on it, it is the foolishness of youth speaking there. That is a really dumb reason to want to go do something. But it would have been an interesting claim.
I bet. Yeah. That's a hell of an ambiance, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. But I remember the tagline for the Ziggurat Con was, where RPG doesn't mean what you think it does.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, I thought it was
I don't know that Gen Con's going to happen this year either. I don't know that an announcement has been made. I haven't heard an announcement, which doesn't mean there hasn't been one, because I haven't been to Gen Con since it was in Milwaukee. So I would like to go back at some point, but it doesn't look like it'll be happening this year. And maybe next year we'll see. There's
I'm
3 or 4
website because I'm curious.
Yeah, there's 3 or 4. Well, there's at least 4 events that would be in the pipeline ahead of Gen Con, but that doesn't mean you can't day trip out to Gen Con on a Sunday or something like that.
Yeah. I was at Gen Con in 06 working out of the Matrix Games booth. I actually found my badge for it when I was cleaning up some stuff here in my office last week. That was the year back when David Heath's still in Matrix Games that I was working out of the Matrix booth. So I was selling Bayonet Games stuff. I had Brian King from Armchair General Magazine in the booth with me as well. That was a incredibly fun weekend. We were in the middle of an aisle, the way the convention halls are laid out with the booths and everything. We were in the middle of an aisle. We weren't on a corner or an end cap or anything. The end cap right next to us, where Brian and I were sitting down towards one end of the booth, was actually the curtain between us and Crazy Igor's. And so we kept kind of moving the curtain, trying to see, what all was in there. I wonder if they would notice if one of these went missing, if they just happened to fall into the Matrix Games booth with us, But then I went back in 07 and ended up making a day trip from Columbus for Gen Con. And that ended up being like an 18-hour day. It was insane. One of my professors, this was when I was in grad school, one of my professors was playing in the Star Wars Minis tournament. and the collectible minis one. And he was like a nationally ranked player. Like he was going for some national level tournament, and he was one of the 6 or 8 guys shortlisted that had a reasonable chance of winning this thing. I think he finished third or fourth. So we left out of Columbus at like 6 a.m. and so that we would be there for him to get there for the start of the event, and for me to wander the exhibit hall. And 14 hours later, we're on our way driving back out of Indy. On our way out, we grabbed James Mishler from Adventure Game Publishing, and we ended up sitting down having dinner with Bob Bledsaw back before he passed away from Judges Guild. And so we're sitting down for dinner, and Tony's like, "Is this the Bob?" "Yes, this is the Bob Bledsaw." "Sit down, let's have dinner." So it was a good time.
Yeah, I mean, the whole name. So let me ask this, actually. Let's say you have, you're going to do Armchair Dragoons Digital Convention mid-2022. Who's the dream guest that you would get if you could?
Wow. I mean, besides,
I know who I would pick, but I'm curious to see what you say.
I mean, 2022. Well, I'm
whenever. I'm not talking about the date.
Well, the reason, so you mentioned the date specifically, and that's why I was, starting to rack my brain there a little bit for what might be some sort of anniversary of something in 2022 that I would need to pay attention to. That's why I was curious. Look, Jim Dunnigan is always a great speaker if you get a chance to listen to him talk. There's some
video of Jim Dunnigan on various podcasts floating around.
Yeah. And I've been fortunate enough to see him at connections, here and there. He's a blast to have him come talk. One of the smartest dudes I've ever seen give a wargaming talk is Professor Philip Sabin, who used to teach the wargaming program at King's College in London. He's now retired, lives in South America somewhere.
That I didn't know.
Yeah, the challenge with Phil Sabin did the book Simulating War. He's got a couple of others. There's Lost Battles is him. The challenge with Phil Sabin with a hobby gaming crew like this is he really overlaps much more heavily with the academic and professional world. Brilliant dude, fantastic guy to listen to. One of the nicest guys ever. I met him at NDU one time when he happened to be in the States, and he's a really great guy. I don't know what the broad appeal for him might be. Who were you thinking? Who do we need to go draft into this?
Jim Dunnigan was who I was thinking of.
Dunnigan.
Yeah. He's kind of re-engaged with the hobby in the last year or so. A little bit, he's not like doing designs or anything like that. Although that'd be Jim, if you're watching, please go ahead. But he's been on some podcasts and stuff like that. And I hadn't really seen him talk much about the wargaming hobby really since like the analog wargaming hobby since the Complete Wargames Handbook. And I know he's been kind of he's never like washed his hands of it or anything like that, but it just hasn't seemed to be a visible presence for a while. And there's a couple other people like that who've been kind of out of it for a while and have reemerged as people who are now interested in wargaming again, as having been part of it in past decades. Nick Karp's another one who showed up, I think, at Consim World Expo or something like that last year after really not really being involved in wargaming at all for quite a while.
Yeah, there are some other people that I wouldn't mind reaching out to. Part of the challenge I have, so like Harold,
right, Joe Balkowski's back too. So
yeah, well, and that's where like Harold, he calls up Mark Herman, and Mark's like, "Hi, Harold, how's it going?" If I try to call Mark Herman, I don't get past the call screener. But that's because Harold's got a pre-existing relationship there, and so Mark Herman sort of affiliated with San Diego because of that relationship he's got with Harold. And I wouldn't want it to look like I'm trying to, sort of steal Harold's guests or anything. One person I think would be fascinating to have just in a general open Q&A. It'd be awesome to get Frank Chadwick.
Yeah, actually.
I think Frank Chadwick would be a blast.
And Frank's he's remained active kind of this whole time. And I know that Frank has multiple projects, like actual design projects in the pipeline at this point. There's at least two or three that I'm aware of. So at least three that I'm aware of.
Yeah, and he might be easier to get, but might not be as famous a name as Chadwick. But Alan Emmerich has always been a really smart dude to sit down and have a conversation with.
I would imagine that Alan would be a great guest to have, actually, just personality wise.
Yeah.
I find that wholly believable.
You know what's going to happen is word's going to get out of us sort of throwing out this dream sheet of people that we would love to have a conversation with. And we're going to get like 9 of them all get in touch with us about this summer and have to try and fit them all into the same convention.
That would be amazing.
I would, first of all, I'd wet the bed, and then I'd have to try and find some volunteers to help do everything else. So, we, David Glantz on East Front event. So Glantz used to come to Origins quite a bit.
Oh, really?
And Glantz used to be a regular speaker at the War College.
Okay.
And once some of the perks from the War College started to dry up, some of the extra badges or the hotel rooms and stuff, then it got to be a lot harder to get guys like that there. There was one year I'd kick the door down to hear him give a presentation, actually. Yeah.
You could see at least one presentation of Glantz's that is on YouTube that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Yeah. There was one year there where Matt Caffrey drafted me into being the moderator on a panel several years in a row of the games and sims for military training and learning, something to that effect. I don't remember the exact title. James Sterrett and I were the 2 mainstays of that panel for, half a decade or more. But we'd get guys like Chris Weave or Paul Weber would come in. Matt would be in there. But there was one year where we had Chris Weave, Matt Caffrey, John Tiller, Joe Miranda, and me. Clearly the kid brother in the room. And if Chris chimes in here on the stream at some point, he'll tell you that they used to have sort of a running bet among the other panelists of how many minutes before Brant lost control. And it was usually in the single digits.
Well, what else? Just throwing the ball around here. I mean, a guy like David Thompson always seems to be willing to get in the ball game a little bit. Volko seems to be willing to be involved in this kind of stuff. I was on a show. Dan invited me on a show with Volko and David actually a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, "What?" I felt totally out of place. Here's these 2 guys, right? And this clown sitting here.
Yeah. We had David here as a GM. David was one of the people we called to reach out about this. And David was able to commit some time to being a GM to teach by stealth and see. Unfortunately, just his schedule this weekend with the family wasn't such that he could do much more than that. But it was great to have him, even for that little bit. It was fantastic to have him here.
Yeah, that happens. I did see. I actually stopped in, COVID or not. I'm masked up and all that. I actually stopped at the guard tower the other day, and they have whatever David's latest release is. They had there. I forget if it's by Stealth and Sea or the Danzig post office game. But
posting on soldiers and posting uniforms.
But they're improving. This is guard tower east, so the second location out on the east side. They are improving their war game selection. They've got about 3 shelves of war games now.
Just
small shelves.
Quick good night to Andres Garcia, who's off in Spain, who's calling it a night.
Oh yeah, it's crazy o'clock over there.
Yeah,
so have a great night. Stay safe.
So did want to say I will tell you. So I was chatting before the seminar started earlier today with Dana Lombardi. We had a fun conversation with David. Yeah.
Who's David Butterfield? You're either thinking of John Butterfield or David Copperfield.
Here's part of the challenge, guys. A lot of these names would be awesome. The problem is if we reach out to all of them, now I've got like 64 hours of seminars and no time for anybody to play games.
Okay, so funny origin story time that sort of touches on this. Okay, and I've told this story in person, and it's usually a big hit. So again, back in the day where we used to drive down from Cleveland to Origins, I would always get a hotel room at the convention hotel, preferably because it's just way more convenient, right? It's great. If you I want to take a nap, you go up and take a nap, no problem. You're all good. You come back down refreshed in an hour and you're all set. However, the problem is that like in February, I would start pitching to the local buddy group. Hey guys, Origins is in late June. Here's the dates, blah, 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 blah. Who wants to go? They'd all say, yeah, let's do it this year. And then like in the 2 weeks before the convention, they would all bail on me. So one year I said, screw it. I'm just going to say, I don't, and that leaves me on the hook for the hotel room cost. Yeah. So I go and say, screw it. I'm just going to just pay for it myself and whoever comes. So I get a room at the luxurious Motel 6 up on 161. Okay, which is, like a 20 at the time, it's probably a 20, 25-minute drive.
Yeah.
To the convention center from, based on good traffic, not taking a high street all the way up like we did, which we'll get to. So one of the guys, I was partners in a game store up in Cleveland at the time. And one of the local guys up there said, one of the guys, my regular buddy, said, "Hey, let's ask what's his name to join us. Let's call him Phil." I'll tell you the real first name. His name was Jason, but he's passed away now, and you'll get a picture of why when I finish the story. So, Brant, you may have heard this before. So
I think I have.
So we go, and it's Saturday. We're there the whole time. So we've got that's the year, right? Besides that, I asked everybody. They said sure, figuring everybody would bail, and I'm stuck in this Motel 6. At least it's just Motel 6. It's like $25 a night. That's the year that 8 people decided they were coming. So we have 8 people in this Motel 6 hotel room. We have people literally stretched out under the sink. Guy sleeping in the tub, the whole bit, everything between the beds, but foot of the bed.
Road trip.
You got 2 grown men spooning each other in one of the beds. It was weird. That's a memorable moment right there. So this guy Jason, completely nice guy, reasonable guy. We didn't know that he doesn't behave that way when you start filling him up with the sauce. So we go out to eat on Friday night, I think it is, and we go to this bar and we start drinking and something like that, and he starts getting belligerent after a while. So we're like, yeah, let's take a break. So we go back to the convention center. We go into the big bar on 2, which is like the second story big hotel bar adjacent to in one of the convention hotels. So he starts drinking. We're still drinking. He starts drinking more and more. He becomes completely unpardonable. We can't deal with this anymore. He's literally starts randomly walking around headbutting people. We're like, okay, we got to get him out of here. So we pile
TV show time.
We pile everybody into 2 vehicles. Now there's 2 vehicles. There's my buddy Simon, who's got, at the time, Simon and I both had matching shaved heads, which becomes a funny thing later in the story. So we pile into 2 vehicles. We pile everybody into Simon's giant windowless white rapist van, and my other buddy's brand new, just drove it off the lot earlier in the week, brand new Chevy Trailblazer. So my buddy Sean is a let's call him a passionate and spirited young Irish lad. So a bit of a temper on him. So he's driving. Boom, boom, boom. Jason's in the front passenger seat. I'm in the seat behind him. So we're driving up High Street, and it's Friday night on a High Street, Ohio. We're driving right past Ohio State's campus, and there's all kinds of people. He starts shouting stuff out the windows, like racial epithets and stuff like that. I leaned forward. I said, "Jason, if you say another word, I'm going to take my belt off and I'm going to fucking garrote you with it." So shut your mouth. So he shuts up. He rolls up the window. Forks on the window, and then he rolls the window down, so it's all stuck inside the door. So, and my buddy's driving. It's and he is the color of red that my Irish buddy is. I can't even describe to you. He's the tension. There's literally smoke coming off him. He's so outraged. So we get this guy back to the hotel. So me and my buddy and my other buddy who are in the car stay down and try to clean this vehicle up. This brand new Chevy Trailblazer. We get back up to the hotel room, and Jason has locked himself in the bathroom. So at one point, you had the door open. You have 8 people milling in and out and up and down to get to the vehicle and all this, and 2 fairly large, shaven-headed guys beating on the bathroom door. Get out! I'll kill you, you son of a... Boom, 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 boom. Motel 6 security comes over. Now, imagine, if you will, Grady from Sanford and Son. Okay, so security comes over. Is everything okay over here? Everything's fine. Go away. Yeah, all right, fine. He wanders away. I've never come so close to murdering somebody and leaving their body in a ditch as that particular night, by the way. So we finally get him out of the bathroom. So we get him out of the bathroom. We go in there. I'm like, oh, my God. He has thrown up all over the bathroom. He has cleaned it up with all of the towels. And then he has stuffed all the towels into the toilet. And then has dropped a giant loaf on top of the towels. So,
oh man,
it was a hell of a night. He apologized profusely the next day after he had sober. We literally drove him to the convention center and rolled him under a bench to sleep it off. Like 5 hours later, he came and apologized. But obviously, we didn't invite him back.
This is why you have to be careful who you room with at a game convention.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. I got another horror story, but it's a less entertaining story, which is last Winterfest. The Winterfest before the last Winterfest, where somebody bailed on the hotel room on me, leaving me holding the bag.
Yeah.
So that's lame too. But yes, convention advice: be careful who you room with.
Yeah, yeah. One of the advantages I have with Origins, I've mentioned this, multiple times before. My parents retired in Columbus. My dad, that was his last duty station in the Army, was working in Columbus there with the Ohio National Guard. And so when I go to Columbus, I stay at Casa del Mom. Makes for a much more affordable convention experience when you're eating mom's cooking and not paying for parking because you have them drop you off.
I did that at my first Winterfest. My parents live in Avon, so I was driving from Avon to Sandusky. It's about a 40-minute drive, something like that. I'd have a packed lunch with me. It was fantastic.
Yeah. No, that's the way to do it. So going back to some of the other convention stuff earlier today when I was talking with Dana Lombardi, we got started with nobody else in the room, but we were recording, so people were going to be able to watch it. And I think what happened was one of the games before that had two of the eventual attendees to Dana's talk was running long. So when those guys wrapped up, they came over to his talk. But I was talking the first time that I was a seminar speaker at Origins, I was doing a Fog of War. And this would have been like my second Origins, maybe my third. I was not very far into having been at Origins very, very much. But Matt Caffrey drafted me into coming to talk at Origins based on a column that I had written for a website online. And I'm not going to say no, right? They're asking me to come be a speaker. I'm like, all right, cool. I've hit the big time, right? Not knowing any better at the time. And so I'm doing a talk on Fog of War. I got my slides all ready to go and everything. And there's two people in the room. And I'm like, oh, this is great. But then I'm looking at who the two people are. It was Joe Miranda and Charles Camps. So here I am, Mr. Self-published, nobody kind of designer, who got hijacked into doing a talk on Fog of War. And I've got Miranda and Camps as my audience. And I'm like, what are you guys supposed to learn from me? Like, what are you going to get out of this?
It's funny.
It was almost more of a conversation than a presentation. It was really cool, though. I mean, Camps was a very gracious dude. Joe is Joe, right? I mean, you catch Joe on the right day, he's an incredibly affable, nice guy. You catch Joe on a bad day, he's like everybody else on a bad day. So.
It's funny. I remember the digital wargaming media panel that we did a couple years ago, and it felt like everybody that was there were themselves a purveyor of wargaming media somehow. There was me and you, and there was Jim Werbineth was there, and the fellow that does the podcast, one of the podcasts was there.
Mark from War Games to Go was there.
And there were a couple other people, but I mean, a big chunk of the attendance was people who could have just as soon been on the panel.
Yeah. David Thompson was there for a while.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Adam was there from, he's one of the Dragoons regulars. Some of the guys from On Target Sims stopped by. It was a good time. So yeah, Tommy McGuire's wearing his khakis. So Tommy, you have to change your name to Jake.
We are all very fortunate that I am, in fact, wearing pants at this exact moment.
Yeah. I am still in the pajama pants, but I am in different pajama pants than I was Friday night on the call with Mo.
We were on, when I was on with Dan yesterday, we had Brian Train talking about the pantsuka that they used at Burning Man to like launch pairs of tighty whities at people who were otherwise pantsless, because that's a thing that I guess happens at Burning Man. So I was thinking of doing that for gaming conventions, except with deodorant.
Yeah.
Or possibly shampoo.
Or appropriately sized shirts.
That's true.
We've seen a few folks wearing shirts that might have fit them in 8th grade, but no longer fit.
Well, that's true too, but that's easy enough to look the other way, I find.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just outgrow these things, right?
Yeah. And at this point, though, like, the clever shirt saying when the shirt is 2 sizes too small, it doesn't matter how clever the shirt is. So
I'm super uncomfortable wearing a shirt that I have out fat-assed. So, that's why I'm ordering extra large, right? Because at least I'm not 2XL, right?
Yeah.
So
thanks for that, by the way.
Oh, you're
for those of us that are.
Sorry.
More of me to love.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not 2XL.
Huh?
You're not a 2XL.
Yeah. Yeah, I am. So,
well, you know what? I put on probably 20 pounds in this pandemic bullshit too. So,
yeah, that's part of the challenge of living in your pajamas throughout the pandemic is that you can't really tell how much the waist size is expanded.
Yeah,
they're all elastic. You know?
Yeah, that's a fair point. Well, once this is over with and everybody is and the economy has recovered from the tragedy that we've had in the last 18 months, we'll all hopefully get back into former shape.
Yeah. I do want to ask you a couple of convention questions just of the audience. Y'all chime in on the chat. One of the things I didn't do this year, because we sold 3 of them last night, I didn't do any kind of shirts or merchandise or logo branded stuff for this convention this time around because it just didn't seem all that important. Like I did it last summer because we were trying as best as possible last summer to replicate the full convention experience end to end as best we could. This time we just really wanted to focus on games and a couple of interesting speakers. Did y'all were you wondering why we didn't have shirts? Were you like bummed you couldn't get one? Was that like a big deal? If it was, I'm sorry. But that'll sort of help us know for the summer whether or not that matters. If it does, that's cool. Like we'll figure out a way to make it happen. I just didn't do it this time. It didn't seem like people cared much last summer, so I didn't.
I would probably just set it up through Teespring and have them handle it all. Say, here's the T-shirt link if you want a T-shirt.
Well, that's what we did. It was Cafe Press, and
same type of deal.
Yeah, and honestly, I think you can still order last summer's. I don't know that I ever took them down. So I think you could still order the one from last summer there. We even gave one of them away on the talk show with Mo. But I didn't set them up for this time around. I didn't know if people cared enough. I think, like I said, last time I think we sold 3 of them, and one of them was the one I ended up giving, that I got for the giveaway. Yeah. So
I can tell you I've given more T-shirts away than I've sold. So
yeah. And that may be. So, Carl, there were not shirts for this one. There were for the one we did last July. And that's kind of why I'm asking the question. Did people care? Like, is your virtual convention experience diminished because you aren't able to grab that memento? And again, I'm trying to get a sense of the digital conventions offer some things that are kind of cool that we can't get in person, like sleeping in your own bed and, being able to walk away at it when you need to, a little easier. But there are some things that we've just sort of taken for granted at a lot of in-person conventions that may not translate as well to the digital environment. And that merchandise booth is kind of one of those things. And so, we did them last summer, didn't sell a bunch, didn't do them for this one, didn't know if people missed it. And that's kind of why I was asking. So
since you're on that, while we wait for responses on that in the chat, let me give you the opportunity to bring up the convention's publisher and retailer partners.
Oh, yeah.
All of whom deserve a good word. I made a point to go buy some stuff from Enterprise Games, and I think Don's out of town right now, so it ain't shipping right now. But the post office is going to lose it for a couple of weeks anyway, so it's all good.
No kidding. Lost. Here.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'm not sure I've ever sweated package delivery quite so much as when I have something that cost me $200 that's like lost in the labyrinth of the post office right now.
Yeah.
So,
okay. So plugging those vendor partners, Enterprise Games, absolutely. Don's got it. And all of these things are in the virtual vendor hall in the Discord. We didn't publish that on a website on purpose because, these things are for the convention goers. We didn't want those codes necessarily getting out too far because the whole point was, trying to do this as a thank you for people that were here at the convention. Enterprise Games, who are a straight up retailer, they're not a publisher, but they're the partner that represents GMT with us at Origins. Don's got an incredibly cool warehouse, and more than a few times, Jim Ozarski and Doug Miller have threatened to just move into Don's warehouse and live there.
I can see that. Yeah, Don's got. They're great folks too. Absolutely great people.
So he does new and used stuff, a lot of rare and collectible stuff. I don't know that it's for sale. I know Don had it for sale for a little while and then pulled it back down. He has Gary Gygax's autographed copy of Napoleon at Waterloo. Yeah, the original block version of
that's something else.
Yeah, and
to this day, I regret not getting Gary's autograph on any of the 3 occasions when I had the chance.
Yeah. So Enterprise Games has a deal going in there. Ad Astra has a deal in there that they've got 10 or 15% if you spend at least $10 with them. The
also a Traveler connection with Ad Astra. There's Traveler product in their store. So
I'll let you tell that story here in a second. Lock and Load's got a deal going in there. The guys from Free Blades we had folks register for those games. They were giving away the living rule book for those folks, and they actually gave away copies to folks watching Mo's live stream the other night. So you could get a living rule book if you dialed in there. Sorry, people are chiming in over here. I'm pulling up the virtual vendor hall to make sure I don't miss anybody. Lock and Load Enterprise, the wargamingcompany.com for those of you that played in the ESR games. They had a deal going this weekend as well. So the vendors that were here, pitched in to help out. And this is something that Mo kind of gets some of the credit for here as well. One of the things when Mo and I were talking before the convention, when we were talking with some of the San Diego guys last summer, part of what we did, again, trying to replicate what we normally do at a convention, we had asked about some prize copies for some things because we generally give away a crap ton of prizes at our booth at Origins. Probably a good chunk of the shelf behind Gary came from our booth at Origins.
Oh no, I don't think any. Not that there haven't been several.
Maybe not that shelf, but a shelf. Okay,
a shelf has a number of things that I got from you guys at Origins.
And if you go troll our Twitter feed from way back when, we've generally live streamed the giant raffle. At the end of the
a lot of fun too, actually.
So last summer we hit some of the vendors up for some prizes that we could give away and stuff. This time around we didn't do the prize stuff because these vendors really took a bath this past year, losing their convention sales and then just people not being able to spend as much on gaming this past year. And so what we asked was, hey, can you put some sort of discount in place that we can drive customers to your store instead? So if you get a chance, those codes are all still good, at least through midnight tonight. Some of them go into tomorrow. Lock and Load has a crap ton of stuff on sale right now, but with the coupon code we've got in the virtual vendor hall in the Discord, you get another 10% off on top of that. I feel like I'm in an infomercial right now.
That's okay. I wanted to bring that up because I thought of that yesterday. I put in an order with Enterprise just to make sure that somebody, and times are tough. I get that, but I wanted to make sure that somebody got some sunshine out of this thing. And hey, I need more games, right?
Of course you do.
So for the curious, I ordered a copy of the Universe RPG from SPI. And Barbarossa Crimea from GMT. So which, of course, is something I had and got rid of because I'm an idiot.
The Universe RPG from SPI?
Mm-hmm. It's actually a fairly interesting game. It's designed by John Butterfield, as I recall.
I remember it well. I guess if you're the kind of guy who loves going through Traveler character creation, then Universe is easy enough.
Actually, that's why I wanted it, because it's as an extra resource for Traveler.
Yeah. And the world building and the ship building in Universe was really cool.
Yes, the Universe building specifically is I wanted a new engine for that because I'm increasingly dissatisfied with the Traveler 5 engine for world building.
Yeah.
For reasons I'll do a whole separate video on at some point.
Or you've got Mike is in the chat here as my own worst enemy. You could always pull him in and you guys just talk Traveler for an hour or two. So
well, that would be fine. Somebody's got my email address. Just email me. We'll set I'm happy to do that. We will set that up. Ardwulfslair@gmail.com.
Yeah. It'll be you and BB Mike and Rocky Mountain Navy sitting there arguing over Traveler for 3 hours.
That would be awesome, actually. I would be delighted to do that. John, I have a video coming out on Tuesday with one of the newer Mongoose products, a flip through of that. So stay tuned for that.
TCT is saying newer, younger war. You're not a newer war gamer. You're a younger war gamer. You've been wargaming a decade, dude. Seriously. Some must-have classics from Enterprise. Most of the SPI Civil War and World War II quad games are pretty good. You can probably track down some of those pretty easily.
And that's literally the first place I would look for those kinds of games, actually.
Yeah, especially with Crazy Igor's not being in business anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's Noble Knight, too, and I'm not going to bash Noble Knight, but the prices do tend to be relatively high. You'll tend to pay a better price at Enterprise.
Yeah. The blue and gray quads and the quads like the West Wall quad from SPI. What's great about them is you've got 4 different games that you can learn with basically the same rule set, and they're very playable. They're not the best, and graphically they could use a little work. But
depends.
But they're good games.
Another thing is SPI S&T magazine games, right? There's still some gems in there, and you can get those from Enterprise at very reasonable prices in the $15 to $30 range. In a lot of unpunched in a lot of cases, things like Sicily, Race to Messina, which is considered one of the best games that SPI ever did in the magazine. Interesting oddities like Cobra, stuff like that. You can get those very, very inexpensively from there.
Yeah, Jeff Beeler's chiming in with the Ardennes quad. That's another one of the really good World War II quads. But the quads are just
Napoleon's Last Battles.
Yeah,
the quads in general tend to be relatively strong, unless you've priced yourself out of the market. That they tend to be fairly strong values.
Yes, yeah. So some of my favorites of those old quad games were the SPI Mod Quad sets, Mod Quad 1 and 2, the Modern Battles quads. I'm a huge fan of those, in large part because I'm a big fan of the modern ground combat genre. That's my shtick, and folks know that. Like that's not a news. It's not a news flash for anybody, but I do know that their appeal is fairly limited among the larger wargaming audience out there. There are a lot of folks that do not like Mod Quad 1 at all. Mod Quad 2, the games are a little better. The graphics are a little worse. But I like those. If modern ground combat is your thing, they are very accessible games to get into. They're just not necessarily the most realistic out there. There's an updated version of that engine that Decision Games does. But honestly, if you want a slightly updated version of those Modern Battles quads, there were a couple of pairs of games in some S&Ts about 12 or 13 years ago that was Cold War Battles 1 and 2. There was a Würzburg Pentomic, which they later expanded into a full game and didn't make it any better. It's better in the magazine. But there was a Würzburg Pentomic and an Afghanistan 87-ish or maybe into the set. It was a Soviet attack on Kabul that were in one magazine together, and then the other magazine had a Budapest 56 and Angola 87 game in there together. And the Angola 87 game is a good one. That was a fun one. So again, it's duels, it's not quads, but if you get both of those S&T magazines put it together, you've sort of got Mod Quad 3 almost. So there's a handful of different ones on a bit of a ramble.
He's got at least a couple copies of War in Europe as well, for those who would like to spend $200 or $300-$400.
Yes, and a week and a half setting it up.
No, it takes probably 15 to 20 man hours to set it up.
Yeah,
I say this as someone who has in fact set it up.
Yeah. So. Keep in mind that while most of us simply have to avoid the nuclear cat jumping on our game tables, TCT has youngsters running around the house that may in fact shift the game table a bit and have to be a little careful.
So that's a problem. We actually, when we played War in Europe, we actually played it on a wall, not the magnetized way, which is the less I think slightly better way to do it. We actually played it with plastic tack, which did not work very well. We mentioned.
No.
But
Chris, we don't have to tell them a little more about Würzburg Pentomic. There is And so there's the actual printed folio game that Decision Games, I think, still has in stock and sells, but it is Würzburg in the late 50s, early 60s, using a pentomic division model for the U.S. forces that are there, and then whatever the comparable Soviet organization was at the time. I don't know that there are Davy Crockett's in there. There probably should be, just for the absurdity of it all. But yeah, it's a pentomic order of battle from the early Cold War. They did not expand that order of battle beyond that one pentomic game with Würzburg. I believe, although somebody else will probably chime in and correct here at some point, I think in the new Iron Curtain game from MMP, one of the scenarios has the U.S. laid out in a pentomic divisional organization.
I believe that to be an accurate statement.
So
I've already actually unloaded my copy of Iron Curtain.
Okay.
So just because it was a trade I didn't sell it. It was a trade that kind of swung my way.
You couldn't have called me about this?
I had a local guy who was whining about it the day it walked its way in my door. So he kind of had dibs on it in this particular case. It does look like it's a very nice package if you're interested in that topic. It's got like you could play it in like right after the war. There's like a 1945 scenario. There's like a 1951 scenario. There's like a 1970s scenario and a 1980s scenario. There's a lot of different ways you can go with it. It's a really nice little sandbox package. John Longshore mentions that Bruce Maxwell's NATO, which is coming out from a new edition, is coming out from Compass Games, looks great, and I agree it does. And I've actually already talked to Bruce about it, and it looks great. That's actually one of the reasons I got rid of Iron Curtain, because it's basically the same scale as the Bruce Maxwell NATO game, and the Bruce Maxwell NATO game looks kind of awesome. Yeah. Who is it? Mo that just did an interview with Bruce.
Mo did the interview with him last night. They talked a lot of NATO, but they also talked some air and armor as well.
Ooh, cool. Because I know that's coming back as well. And I don't know that Compass, I don't know that they have it up for pre-order, but I know they've said we're doing this. And that looks interesting as well. I actually have some pictures from Compass Expo from last year of Bruce's playtest copy with the handwritten counters of NATO. So, and I've got an interview with Bruce coming on Tuesday at 8 p.m. That'll be live, so tune in for that.
Yeah, I think at this point I'm the only one not interviewing Bruce.
That's true. Well,
and that's mainly because I haven't tried to schedule it, not because he said no.
The game's coming out, and Bruce made himself available to kind of a bunch of people, and it looks awesome. And I am happy to give Bruce the opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah, and it's funny, and I've mentioned this in the past, but in the mid 80s, when a lot of those games came out, like the NATO game from Victory Games or the Fifth Core series from S&T Magazine, a lot of those modern, then contemporary Cold War goes hot in Central Europe. I was living in Central Europe. Like, one of the first things we did when we got those boxes open was go find what hex we lived in. It's like we would crack those things open and go, oh, all right, there's that high. Okay, that's us right there.
I almost never get that experience, right? Because I have literally lived in the 120 miles between Columbus and Cleveland my entire life, right? There's very little war game action that has occurred in this space, except the War of 18. Some of the War of 1812 happened up here, so occasionally I'll get to say, "Oh, War of look at that's where I grew up right there." I did that. I literally did that. I got all googly at Compass Expo. That's a new 1812 game coming from Compass. Called 1812, oddly enough.
Yeah. Who saw that coming?
Who'd have thought? Jeff, I just put the ACDC website link in the chat. If you don't see it, let us know.
Yeah, there's a couple of, and so I was looking for some clarification. I didn't know if he was looking for the tabletop.events registration site or the other link over on our site. So I needed to sort of mention both there. So with regards to sort of how some of the things went at the convention, if you've got a favorite game or a favorite seminar, some favorite event that happened while you were here, if it was one of the interviews with folks, right? It's tough to top Brian Train telling the story of the Pantzuka. But if you've got some other particularly memorable moment,
literally him and Dan going off for like 20 minutes about about poutine and mooses and hockey, and it was the most Canadian interview ever.
Yes, that definitely happened. But if you if there was something particularly great, memorable that you really liked and really enjoyed, if you've got a GM who did a great job that you really want to call out, please, throw those in the chat. Let us make sure that we recognize guys that kicked ass on something out there. Definitely want to recognize those guys for doing a great job. One of the other things, and I need to post the link in the chat here as well. We do have a short feedback survey that's out there. Probably got about a half a dozen responses or so already. Just sort of asking, hey, what'd you think? What were some of the things you played in? Give us some suggestions for what we can do better, what we should continue to do. So make sure you
and also make sure that you submit your survey response and say that you want Monster Wargamings running for the entire duration of the convention.
You can want it all you want, but until Gary volunteers
to organize it, I'll be happy to do it. Actually, I just would need 2 other people to help run it. That's all.
What you need somebody crazy enough to take the midnight to 8 a.m. shift.
I might be that crazy. I'm pretty. I don't know if you know. I'm fairly crazy. So I might. I mean, if that had happened this weekend, I could have done that. So but it's hard to sell that, right?
Yeah. Well, the way you do this, Gary, as we're brainstorming this in real time, what you do is you get a couple of teams together, and we have some massively stupid prize for the winning team that the teams have to tag in and out overnight. So it almost becomes sort of this military exercise that's got to run 24/7 in semi-real time. That by the time you get around to the end of the week, whatever the winning team is on whatever event it was, this is what you get. So see what that does for us. I don't know if it'll work or not. So just throwing that out there.
I think it's a great idea. Christopher said they need some Australians, which is absolutely correct.
Actually, we had an Australian. We had one. He popped in on the talk show with me and Mo. It was like 1:30 in the afternoon for him while we were, having drinks at the end of the night here.
I might be able to rustle some Australians up. Actually, we've got some Australians in the YouTube wargaming content creator community.
Yeah,
more than one, but at least 2 or 3.
Andrew Rowland joined us from Australia. I'm not sure what all he played in. I know he crashed the happy hour that Mo and I had the other night, and then he was. It's funny. It was the middle of the afternoon when he crashed the happy hour, and then very late at night, after we woke up the next morning, he joined us for the breakfast wake up session on Saturday morning as well. John, I was neither a colonel nor a command sergeant major. I got out of the National Guard as a captain, a fairly senior captain, but I got out as a captain. So,
double blind monster game. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Maybe next time. Somebody mentioned Flat Top in the chat earlier. That is a fantastic game.
I had originally put My Own Worst Enemy down as the GM for a double blind Flat Top game, and he threatened to kill me. So
I'll play that. I'd love to play that. That's so much fun.
I think it would be really cool if we could get a legit double blind something or other going. One of the things that I think is fairly cool about the audience here, just, again, folks primarily playing to have a good time, not, I have to crush the other guy. And, is I think if we did a legit double blind something, folks would take it in the spirit in which it was intended, and they wouldn't be text messaging each other on the side trying to, bypass communication or something. So
yeah, you would hope that would be actually a lot of fun. Don't forget, there's that whole series of double blind games that GDW did back in the day too. You could mine that for ideas.
Yep. So, so My Own Worst Enemy is chiming back in there. Still thinking about it for a future ACDC. Yes. So you've got about 3.5 months or so to pull it together so that we have time to test it before the June ACDC. So,
and I can tell you that Beneath the Southern Cross will not be out by then. So
that won't stop us from grabbing a pre-pub copy of it though, right?
Oh, it's nowhere near. It's not close. It's 2 to 3 years away. In my estimation, having talked to the designer at the last Compass Expo, it looks neat, but Flat Top by itself out of the box is a fantastic game. I highly recommend it. Just a great experience. It's one of those things where I would always say, as a wargamer, you should try. You don't have to like it necessarily. You might decide, hey, this is too much paperwork for me. That's fair, but it's just a great experience that you should absolutely try it and check it out.
Yep.
Tons of fun.
I'm still, I don't think Mike Dunn is tuned in here. I'm sure Chris Weave will tell him that I'm about to say this, and between him and James Starrett, they can
Maurizio, thanks for
kill me later. But I think it would be awesome if we could pull off one of the CPXs like we do at Origins somehow through.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Actually, that would be really cool.
That would be a blast. I'm real curious how it would. I mean, you've got to use like Zoom conference rooms or something to pull that off. I don't know. I'm not sure Discord has the robustness to really do it right, but I'm not opposed to trying it.
I mean, you could set up multiple rooms for it on your Discord server.
Yeah, we'd have to play with it and see.
Yeah. And sometimes you do have some slight audio issues with Discord. Not any more so than you do with like TeamSpeak. You might be able to get around that by paying for the upgraded Discord service. That's possible. I don't know what the specifics are of that, nor do I know what it costs.
Yeah,
but with all the the riches that you've raked in for this convention, I'm sure you'll be able to afford that.
Yeah. Okay. We got a hosting cost we got to handle here.
I'm aware of that. Yes.
But yeah, so there's lots of suggestions rolling in for things we can do for next time, and so one of these days we've got you all captured in the chat on YouTube, so I know which one of y'all to call. Board Game Bloke, you are getting called to be in charge of the double blind 8th Army Operation Crusader game.
You're being
we're calling you for the flat top game. Chris, we're calling you for whatever naval game we decide we're going to try to do, and let you handle it. I don't know that we're going to get Merle to do an NSDM game because I don't know that anybody wants to give up 8 hours of time to have to play a game.
They have 4-hour events now. I'll tell you what. So what that is, if anybody doesn't know, it's the National Security Decision-Making Game. And I'm going to outrage everybody involved by describing it for what it is. Brant knows where I'm going with this. It is a LARP for wargamers. That's what it is. It's fantastic. And it's another one of those things you should absolutely do, like the command post exercise that Brant had mentioned. Yeah. It's one of those things that you absolutely need to experience as a wargamer, I think.
So it's a LARP for wargamers, but with an important caveat. It is against national security, right? It is at a high strategic level.
Yeah.
This is not, where do I put that tank to blow shit up? This is
you don't have to dress up, but if you do, it's awesome.
But yeah, the NSDM is one of those sort of tentpole events that you get at the game conventions that I think a lot of us are trying to figure out how to do digitally, but have frequently been one of those things that we tell people you got to do this when you're at a game convention because it's so hard to pull off locally around your town. And that's one of the things, like, you and 3 buddies can get together and play 2-man teams for a big ASL game for 3 hours one afternoon at your local game store. Like, you can find people to do that if you have to, even if you got to schedule it ahead of time for one of the 4 of you to drive in from out of town, you can pull that together. You can't pull together an NSDM event or one of the CPXs outside of something like a convention very easily, because there's some specialized knowledge. There's some tools that you got to have there in terms of the maps and the counters and the equipment. And in the case of the CPXs, the actual computer game itself that you guys are collectively playing against. Those are the kinds of things you really need to do at a convention when you've got a chance to do it. So,
yeah, the actual people that do that need to be involved. It's not something that I could just decide, hey, I'll run an NSDM game. That's not what it would end up being. It would totally be a LARP when we all dress up.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Tons of fun. And I do not regret a moment of that 8 hours I spent playing the National Security Decision-Making game.
Yeah. We are looking at some of the Kriegspiels. One of the challenges we have with the Kriegspiels is that if Cyrano takes off and starts playing Kriegspiels, then he's not available for those big epic TTS.
Yeah. Well, you can just put this all on Jim's shoulders. Actually, just tell him that Tabletop Simulator is counting on him to make this work, and he will totally make it work.
We've actually.
I'm sorry, Jim Grog of the Year Orzowski. So
yes,
say
that is him
from now on. At least
he's actually done a fair amount of investigation of figuring out how to do a double-blind Kriegspiel through TTS. So this is not new territory. It's just continuing existing research. That was a good call, though. We do need to recognize our buddy Cyrano, Jim Ozarski, was picked as No Enemies Here's Grognard of the year. And so that announcement went out yesterday, actually.
It's an honor just to be nominated.
Yeah. It was funny, though, that when somebody did nominate you in one of those one of Jim's threads,
mm-hmm.
there was your
somebody went off on politics.
Huh?
Somebody went off on politics.
Yeah. Your little troll that likes to follow you around the web chimed in there.
I don't care. I got time for that foolishness.
Yeah. So Task Force is a good double blind game.
I assume we're talking about the SPI Task Force. That's not something I've played.
Make a note, though, that Fabrizio has now volunteered to run Task Force as a double blind game.
I think Fabrizio would be fantastic to run 1985 Under an Iron Sky as part of the 24-hour marathon monster game event. Isn't that right, Fabrizio?
I second the motion. All in favor, feel free to chime in the chat. So I know it's not past everybody's bedtime yet because Fabrizio's here, even though Andreas already dropped off and so did Blue Tweezers. But
it's crazy o'clock over in Italy right now.
Yeah, those of you that are in Europe. So we tried to set up some events earlier in the day, East Coast time, especially on Friday, but on Saturday as well, to get some things earlier in the day that might be a little more Euro friendly for the time zones. Didn't get a whole lot of you guys signing up for stuff. And I'm just curious, was it just a bad weekend? Were you already committed to some other things? Did you actually get into a game, but there just wasn't anything that interested you at those time slots? I'm just sort of curious, if we're going to try and get more of the Europeans involved in some of these games, what is it that we need to do to make it a little more appealing for you? Because we don't want this to just be a giant, sort of USA kind of fet. Dan and Brian notwithstanding, right? It doesn't
getting the word out situation, though,
It could be. So,
and I don't speak Italian, so I shouldn't say it that way. I should say that my spoken Italian is about 2,000 years out of date.
Yeah.
If we want to hold gaming conventions in Vatican City, please let me know, and I can assist with that.
Yeah. Need at least 2 referees for Under an Iron Sky. Well, if Fabrizio's one of them, we just got to find another one. We can let Mo do it.
Yeah, that's right. We could draft Nate, the Gimpy Gamer.
Nate can do it,
and I've got a copy as well. So we could actually make that work. That would be awesome, actually, to have somebody in Europe that doesn't actually have to take that that 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. shift or whatever it is.
Because it'd be 7 a.m. for them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It would be great to have somebody in Europe. You actually don't want to have somebody doing facilitation for 8 hours. You probably want to make it more like 4. You'd want to change out every 4 hours or so. In all, now trying to seriously develop this asinine idea I came up with.
As we're planning the June convention in real time here.
Right. Yes. This is welcome to the Armchair Dragoons Digital Convention June 2021 planning meeting.
Yes, here we go. If Chris is still here, he will tell you this is not that dissimilar from some of the connections planning meetings that actually exist. We don't broadcast those,
including the drinking.
So, 85, the 1 year something did, I had to move. That was the year we moved from Garmisch to Airborne Sailbox. So I was there. So stuff was happening, but, there was something going by in the chat that I just missed that I was wanting to chime in and comment on, and I can't remember what the hell it was. I think it was something about Under an Iron Sky, but I don't remember. But
we picked it up in the actual talk, so it's all good.
I'm sure we did. So it's the power of Scotch planning. There we go.
That's right. We are drinking.
Well, Peter, you mentioned having Europeans playing. We could do that if we can draft a couple of Aussies in. Then everybody gets to be up at their regular peak hours and maintain the game. So
that would be fantastic if we could do that. Yeah.
We got 5 months to get it. Actually, hold on. I'll tell you exactly how much we have because the countdown timer is already running on the Armchair Dragoons website.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm wondering if I'm trying to think if I know Australian OCS players, and I'm not sure I do. I know UK OCS players, and at least one OCS player in Central European time. But Australia, New Zealand time zones, I don't know that I know anybody.
If only we had a boot camp where they could learn the game in the 5 months, 0 days, and 18 hours they have until our summer ACDC kicks off.
Well, we just had a boot camp, and I would like to do more OCS instructional content. But maybe OCS, I don't know. I mean, I keep bringing OCS up, but it's one of the games, the relatively small number of games that I personally am well positioned to talk about, right? Because I play a ton of it. So, GCACW, that kind of stuff. But OCS, maybe not I would prefer something that's got a more interactive turn structure than OCS does. And OCS's turn structure is somewhat interactive, but not that interactive. You're still going to take 2 hours to make your moves before you have to get the other person involved.
I think if we can get the marathon extended campaign of Under an Iron Sky, that might fit the bill for you.
That would be awesome, and I would think that would be fantastic if it could be made to happen.
Yeah. So, well, we have 5 hours, 0 days, and 18. 5 months, 0 hours, 0 days, and 18 hours to pull this off.
Fabrizio, of necessity, you are in charge, but I will be happy to assist. Please let me know. ardwulflair@gmail.com.
If you go hit armchairdragoons.com, we do have a new layout for the beginning of the year. That one's as much my own worst enemy's fault as anybody else. He's one of the guys that, he's the guy that found the new theme that we reskinned the site with that is a much more attractive theme than what we had originally. What we had was great for when we got started, but it's now, it looks a little better, a little more organized. And so up there in the top right corner, those are our upcoming expeditions. So we've got Connections Online is coming up in 2 months and 25 days, and that's going to be a little more professional focused, but we absolutely want the hobby game world to interact a little more with the professionals over that conference. Chris Weave is in here somewhere helping spearhead that effort. Gary just pulled up our Patreon there for a moment. We do have a new Patreon we just launched that of note for the convention world. That the far right on there, the $10 Patreon level pledge gets you advanced registration to all of our future events like the summer ACDC. So that will get you in the door. You can skip the velvet rope line, right? You can get in a little early there. And then we've got Origins on there because it's going to be happening in 8 months, 12 days, and 13 hours. But it's we don't know yet what our level of involvement with that's going to be. So yeah, the Patreon is brand new. Please, if you're inclined to help support us and help keep us on the air, we really appreciate it. And then I'm trying to think, what else do I got to plug with this? Oh, the podcast. We're going to start recording again Tuesday night because I don't need to catch my breath after a convention like this, right? So going straight into recording on Tuesday night, and we will have that up about 10 days later or so. Gary, what are you guys talking tomorrow night on your counter clipping stream?
Tomorrow's topic is Monster War Games. Why you should at least try to play a Monster War Games and some of the pitfalls of Monster War Games, because there are pitfalls which has come up lately. Somebody, was it Luke Pulsifer was actually talking about how Monster War Games never get play tested the other day. So I'm gonna riff on that for a while, kind of throw Lou in a deep dark pit. So while we're at that. Because he's right, but he's wrong. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. But yes, there is a counter clipping stream tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. So tune in on the Ardwulf Slayer channel. So tune in for that. And then on Tuesday, we have 2 videos. Actually, on Tuesday, there will be a Traveler Tuesday video in the morning, which will be a walkthrough of the new Aliens of Charted Space video from Mongoose Publishing for their new 2nd edition Traveler game, which is fantastic. The book I actually have complaints about, so we'll get to that in the video. And then on Tuesday night at 8 p.m., we're going to do an interview with Bruce Maxwell because everybody is. It's the cool thing that all the cool kids are doing now. But about his specifically, we'll talk about Iron Armor too, I guess. But and whatever else Bruce might have in the pipeline. But specifically, we're going to zero in on his new edition of NATO: The Next War in Europe, coming out from Compass Games, which again looks fantastic. And then Wednesday, there isn't anything scheduled for Wednesday, which doesn't mean there won't be anything. And Thursday, you've got the Armchair Dragoons Unboxing Day.
Correct.
My contribution for which will be Don't Tread on Me from White Dog Games and I believe Ben Madison, the designer.
Yeah, we've already got a bunch of stuff stacked up for Unboxing Day. We've got the latest C3I magazine. We've got Devil Boats. We've got
Devil's Boat.
Yeah, we've
that
got
actually looks pretty cool.
Yeah, we've got the one you've sent. My Own Worst Enemy has something else that he's working on that's going to be in there. It zipped by in the chat while we were talking there for a second. Hethwell was saying we need more miniatures. Wargaming was great to see ESR and get so
we're good.
Well, but here's the thing. We had more minis Wargaming than he's even talking about. We had the Shakos game that didn't get any registrations on Saturday, but did play today. That one did run today. We had 4 Free Blades sessions that we didn't get anybody registered for any of them, which was really kind of, I was a little mortified. Like I went out and reached out to DGS and said, hey, do y'all want to give this a try? And they said, sure. And we had a great interview with them the other night with Mo, and nobody showed up to play in any of those games. And then we had,
that's because you didn't have as big a European contingent as you could possibly have. Though.
Now we did have
in Europe.
The Lardies did reach out to us and ask what they could do to help support, but it was a little late by the time we got to them. So we're looking at getting them a little more involved next time. But we weren't at a shortage of minis events this time around. Y'all just didn't sign up for the damn things. So
it's my position that miniatures are for communists. So as you know.
Well, okay then. Chris is saying Unboxing Day was about 3 weeks ago. We have an Unboxing Day, third Thursday of every month at the Armchair Dragoons is Unboxing Day. One of the things that we did a little differently with the Dragoons compared to the way we've done things at some other sites and the way some other people do stuff, rather than use these shorter little unboxing things as kind of filler throughout the month, we decided to consolidate all of our unboxing content on a single day. So you get a single day that starts at, 6 in the morning, East Coast US time. And about every 90 minutes to 2 hours, we drop another unboxing all day long. And so we end up with anywhere from 7 to 12 different unboxings all in one day that show up end to end. We've got a Kazarine game coming up this time around. So, I mean, it ends up being a fun time. We've got a whole lot of stuff that we'll crank through on Unboxing Day. So,
yeah. So it is, for those who didn't know, it is a monthly event. My personal unboxings keep drifting off of Thursday for no particularly good reason. Then you email me and I have to move the video to Thursday.
Yeah. One of the other things we're going to be doing with some of the Thursdays that aren't unboxing days, probably once or twice a month, we're going to be running some Throwback Thursday classic reviews. There's a bunch of us that have been writing content for 15 or 20 years worth of game reviews at this point. Some of the sites that used to host those reviews are now either starting to go dark or are completely mangled in their CMSs as they've migrated from owner to owner, and they're just losing those older reviews that we'd written. And so a bunch of us are now, there's a handful of us we're starting to repost some of those. There's a handful of them already on the site. If you go looking for classic reviews on our site, you'll find those. But we're going to start making those a little more regular thing with at least one a month, maybe 2 as a Throwback Thursday sort of thing that we'll be dusting off. So you're going to start to see some more of those classic reviews show up. And who knows, if it's a game you weren't aware of in 2004, it's still new to you. So get it out.
Yeah, which is why a lot of these like timely type things, like game of the year, like there was like 2020 game of the year. Well, I didn't, some of the stuff I discovered this year didn't necessarily come out this year, right? There's literally ancient ass things that I first played for the first time this year. So the ones I mentioned in my video of Best of 2020 was the Victory Games, Civil War, and Vietnam, which are both pretty amazing games that still I think stand up fairly well. But they're games that came out in the 80s, right?
Yeah, they're older than Command Tent.
Yeah, they're older than some of the viewers here. So I've literally got dice older than many of the viewers here. I can tell you that. So, but I'm older than I look. Let me put it that way. I've got, by the way, you're not going to be able to see it on video, but for the first time, like literally yesterday, I noticed that there's a spot in my beard that is pure white. Gandalf beard, here we come. That's all I got to say.
Join the club, man. We're all going gray.
Yeah, no, I'm not gray. I've had a fair amount of gray anyway. I mean, pure white, right here. There's a tiny spot.
All right, Matt, you may get some agreement from some other people for Blitz: A World in Conflict. Listen, guys, this whole weekend has been a blast. I'm about to have to bail out. Tommy, Free Blades, it is not historical. It is fantasy skirmish minis, but think of fantasy skirmish minis as though ASL players wrote the rules, not Magic the Gathering players writing the rules. So there are tactical requirements in the way you approach your game. You can't just go charging in and go aggro on folks like it's World of Warcraft with minis. You've got to actually think about the fight you're getting into and how to do it.
What are the sewer rules?
Huh?
What do sewer rules look like?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I've got a copy of the Living Rule Book because I got it from Mo's show the other night.
That sounds actually cool to me, but I don't do miniatures, like I said.
Yeah. Well, in this case, you don't have to do the minis themselves because you'd be doing it on Tabletop Simulator.
That's cheating, though.
Yeah. So it's Free Blades is a fantasy skirmish game, and it has a very great. I'm stumbling over this a little bit. The detail that they're putting into the world as they build it out is very well thought through. It's almost as well constructed on the back end as the Harn setting is in terms of how they've developed it and how they're coloring in the lines as they go. So they've done a really good job of detailing the world as it builds out. The sculpts are some of the best sculpts you'll find in the minis world anywhere. They are fantastic. The guys they've got doing the sculpting are just they're miracle workers. They're awesome. It is unfortunate that this isn't a real world convention where you can see them on the table because it kills on the table. It looks fantastic. That's
actually a good idea for next time is a screenshot gallery. That maybe you can post pictures too of screenshots, or other people can upload pictures too for screenshots.
Yeah, maybe we're able to pull that off in there somewhere. But the Free Blades rules are very different than like the stuff from Privateer Press or the D&D minis game or anything like that. It is not a role-playing game in disguise. It is a tactical minis combat game. So it is very cool. I really wish we'd gotten a little more play for those guys this weekend. I'm bummed we didn't. But I'm at the point at the moment now where I'm going to go duck out and go grab some ribs, sit down and watch the game, beat up on the Buccaneers. So I do appreciate everybody being here. Please take a moment and fill in, give us some feedback on that.
Do you have a link to the survey?
I just posted it again in the link right there. Brady's not beaten Breeze. He hadn't done it all year. The Bucks set a record earlier this season in a game against the Saints for fewest rushing attempts in a game in NFL history with 5. One of those was a kneel down. They only tried to run the ball 4 times in an entire game. But anyway, sorry, I'll get off the football soapbox there.
That's okay. Ted, stay tuned on that. We're gonna be talking about something in that general vicinity fairly soon. Stay tuned.
Hey, Command, send me your mailing address. I've got a book to send you that you may like looking through. That's very Harn-ish, and in fact was called such in a review on RPG.net that I had written about 20 years ago. I'll send you a copy of it. So still got a few laying around.
All right. We're going to wrap here, folks. I would like to thank everybody for stopping by. I didn't call out everybody, but we were up to exactly 50 people as far as I could tell at one point, which is fantastic. Yep.
Wow.
We're at like 38 right now, last I checked, which is like 2 minutes ago. We were at 50 even at one point. So, yeah, well, I will take complete credit for that. It's all.
Yeah, you need to, because they ain't here to see me.
I guess people like watching me do live streams because I regularly get between 45 and 55 people on the Monday night counter clipping streams, and that is like literally the most boring content that a normal person could possibly ask for.
And like every other successful piece of content that started as, let me just see what happens, and then someone expect you to be there.
Okay, let's do it. So anyway, I'd like to thank everybody for stopping by. Everybody have a great and safe time, and stay tuned to the Armchair Dragoons website for their next virtual event, which will be sometime in June. Everybody have a great night.
Gary?